Welcome back to another epic YouTube video where I go into all the albums I listened to in the epic month of March. This month has actually been quite an interesting one. A lot of artists have come back with insane releases. We've got some big names dropping, but also some little surprises as usual here and there. So, as usual, I hope you're ready for an epic journey into the music sphere. I'm sorry for that intro. That was terrible. But look! New gecs. 10,000 gecs is a huge jump in quality from their debut. 1000 gecs was an album I didn't like too much when I first heard it, but it has grown on me since then. This album, however, was super fun upon first listen, and it clicked with me instantly. And I think I can pinpoint why. 1000 gecs, while it's a fun album on its own, feels more like a shitpost than an actual album with passion and creativity put into it. Listening to this album, I can tell immediately that a lot more passion and love went into this, while still maintaining that goofy and silly style that gecs are always known for. Songs like Hollywood Baby and Doritos and Fritos just ooze fun and goofiness, and listening to them with the music videos especially just doesn't stop me from smiling. Then we also have songs like Frog on the Floor and I Got My Tooth Removed, which are where gecs fully embrace their goofy side. Frog on the Floor is a song detailing a story about Dylan finding a frog on the floor at his party and Laura wishing she could have seen it do all the cool things that Dylan described. Such a cool frog. I Got My Tooth Removed is a stupidly layered multi-part rock opera track that does not need to go as hard as it does. It's incredibly goofy, but honestly it works in its favour. You can tell the duo had a lot of fun making this song, and not just this song, but the entire album. They had a vision, and they went for it. 9 out of 10. UMO have been dormant for quite a while now, but they finally returned with their 5th, technically 6th album, V, or 5 in Roman numerals. I'm just going to call it V though, because that's what I've been calling it in my head this entire time, so suck it. V feels like a culmination of everything that the group, and Ruben especially, have done up until this point. He described it himself as a mid-career breakthrough album, in which he can exert all of his creativity on, and it definitely shows. V is a double album consisting of 2 distinct emotional halves. The first feels like driving along the Hawaiian coast, the palm trees above you and the ocean beside you, not a care in the world. It feels like being a child again. You feel happy and free, but something is coming. There are little undertones that make you feel nervous or worried, and they grow and grow until we reach the second half of the record. The second half consists more of songs that reminisce and look back at childhood now as an adult, lost and confused, fog surrounding you. The second half feels much more ambient and dissonant than the first, but also features some of the most unique songs on the record, in Nadia and I Kill Captain Cook, with their darker and, well, more dissonant atmospheres. The first half features a lot more of what you'd expect from a UMO record, and it does it very well. The opener, The Garden, being probably the best song on the record, it draws you in immediately with how catchy and fun it sounds. It's simple, but Ruben has shown that he is incredibly good at making simple work. A lot more of the songs down here have a similar formula of a simple, catchy melody with heartfelt lyrics or even no lyrics at all, and they all work pretty well. V feels like Ruben really stretching his arms out and showing off everything he's got while still managing to tell a story. It's superb, and I'm sure he has a lot more stories to tell after this one. 8 out of 10. I was incredibly excited for this record. The record, even. I shouldn't have to explain why. Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker all working together on the same album. Sign me the fuck up. As you all know, I adored Lucy's previous record, Home Video. It was my favourite album of 2021, and you can go and watch the video where I cover all my favourite albums of 2021 if you want. You should go. And I also adore Punisher by Phoebe. That's also a really good album from 2020. Not my favourite from that year, but really good album. I haven't listened to much of Julian's work, but what I have heard, I do really like. I loved the singles that dropped for this album, so what could go wrong? Well, okay, nothing actually went wrong, but it isn't as good as I had hoped, especially coming from the singles we got. My biggest gripe with this record, you get it, because it's the name. I'm not going to do that every single time I say record, probably, depends if I can, contain it, is that it feels like in working as a group, each of the artists' individual personalities and musical flares have been put to the side, so to speak. There are definitely tracks where each artist get to shine, mainly in the singles that we got, but a lot of the other tracks feel less like Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker writing fun music together, and much more just like your regular indie folk / singer-songwriter songs, which aren't bad things, it's just, it's Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker writing fun music together. So, you know, you expect more? There are other highlights though, such as Satanist and Anti-Curse, which have a similar flair to $20 and not strong enough. But that isn't really enough to save a rocky tracklist like this. This isn't a bad album, and I would still recommend it if you enjoy the three artists. I still enjoy it, but I wouldn't take this over any of their solo work. 7 out of 10. Mainly due to those aforementioned regular indie folk / singer-songwriter songs still being pretty good. They're still good writers, it's just, I suppose I hold them to a higher standard because they're Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker. I was a really big fan of Deathcrash's debut album last year. I talked about it briefly in the first ever monthly albums video I did, but didn't give it a rating at the time. It's a 10, by the way. It'll be in my top albums of 2022 video, which is still coming. I promise, just be patient. I didn't think we'd get another album so soon, but I'm not complaining. As long as it's good, of course. It would have been difficult for the band to top their amazing debut record, and I'm sort of glad that they tried to go in a different direction with this record. Less feels much more emo and post-hardcore inspired than their debut slowcore drones. Less feels more conventionally structured, and it works in its favour. When it decides to stick to it, at least. It's odd, because the best songs in here are the shorter, less experimental ones. When the band do go long on this record, like on the opener and closer, it just feels a bit dragged. I suppose it fits with the title of Less, but still, I much prefer this band where they go all in rather than strip themselves back deliberately, unless it's building towards something. It's still an incredibly solid album, as the good definitely outweighs the bad, and I hope they do more of the hardcore material seen on this record in the future. 8 out of 10. Lana returns with her most ambitious album yet. Did you know that There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard is Lana's newest musical endeavour, and it seems like she's really put her all in this time. Now, let's quickly look back on her previous 3 records, possibly her most important records in her career. Norman fucking Rockwell released in 2019 and was absolutely critically acclaimed. It's an amazing record, and is adored by so many people, including myself. It features some of her best material to date, and I still believe it to be her best album. I was really excited to see where she'd go from here. In 2021, we then got the release of Chemtrails of the Country Club, which was a step back. It wasn't a bad album, but compared to what we had just got 2 years prior, I knew she could do a lot better than that. There were glimpses on songs like White Dress and Arcadia, but she wasn't all there. That same year, we then also got Blue Banisters, which was a much better record, but still not quite there. Lana stated that this was the direction she wanted her music to go in, which left me quite worried for her next release, whenever that would roll around. So when we finally got word of a new album, and then a new single, this sounds like Norman fucking Rockwell. Oh my god. She's done it. Ocean Blvd, which is what I'm going to call it from now on because the full title is too long, is a 100% return to form, and once again features some of her best work to date. Lana stated in an interview that she wanted this album to feel much more wordy and less structured, sort of like a sister album to Norman fucking Rockwell, which was deliberately structured and planned out, even with songs like Venice Bitch wavering on for 9 minutes. This album definitely has that feel to it, with song titles like Grandfather Please Stand on the Shoulders of My Father While He's Deep Sea Fishing. That was a mouthful. And a majority of the tracks breaching 5 minutes, and even the ones that don't are still incredibly wordy. There are some outliers though. One of them, funnily enough, being the best track on the album, and Lana's own personal favourite track she's ever recorded. That, of course, being A&W, or American Whore. This track is split into 2 parts, and is a good introduction into the sonic palette of the album, as the first half is quite mellow and baroque, while the second half is pure trap. It sounds crazy, but it works insanely well. This isn't the only unorthodox song on the album. The latter half especially showcases the more hip-hop side, with the closing track even featuring the original trap demo of Venice Bitch. There's a lot to say about this album. There's a lot to say about Lana in general, to be honest, but we don't have time for all of that. This is a good album. It's a bit long though. 9 out of 10. This was a collaboration that's been anticipated for such a long time. Two legendary artists coming together to make something out of this world. As soon as this was announced, the stakes were so high. They had to pull this off. They just had to. And they fucking did it. Scaring the Hose Volume 1 is hopefully the first in a series of collaborative albums by JPEGMAFIA and Danny Brown, in which they let completely loose and basically do whatever they want. They rap over utterly insane and indescribable beats for just over 36 minutes, and somehow there are almost zero misses. The flow is impeccable, the production is perfect, and the charm and personality is all there. Every one of these songs is something to love, whether it's a beat that sounds like ass clapping or just pure shoegaze. This is an amazing record that I highly, highly recommend anyone check out if they haven't yet. 9 out of 10! This is my first dive into Slowthai's discography, and I feel that there couldn't have been a better starting point than this. Slowthai's been on the scene since 2019, with his debut album, Nothing Great About Britain, receiving generally favourable reviews. I personally didn't listen to it, mainly because at the time I wasn't as much into hip-hop as I am now. I was 15 at the time. I also didn't listen to Tyron, his sophomore release, but that was mainly because I saw it didn't do as well, so I just kind of ignored it. Ugly, however, got incredibly favourable reviews. Everyone was talking about it, so I had to check it out, and I am so glad that I did. This is an amazing album that blends the recent post-punk craze in the UK with the constant UK hip-hop craze. Tyron blends the two genres together excellently and gives bands like Squids a run for their money. No hate towards Squid, love yous. This is an album that mainly centers around Tyron's own insecurities and drug and alcohol abuse, which is all revealed on the opening track, Yum, which feels like something taken straight out of an Atrocity exhibition. As the album progresses, other themes crop up, such as the state of the UK currently, and just a general state of the world as a whole. The world is fucking ugly right now. Tyron said in an interview that the word ugly has two meanings here. The literal meaning, but also as an acronym for You Gotta Love Yourself. U obviously being abbreviated to the letter U. This isn't an album that's meant to make you want to just kill yourself because the world is terrible. It's meant to make you feel like any good punk album should, ready to stand and fight. And it does. His debut album's title couldn't be more true here. There is nothing great about Britain. It's all just ugly. Tyron. Sorry, I felt like I had to fit his second album in there. Name in there somewhere. 9 out of 10. Xiu Xiu create what I can only describe as a horror film in audio form. Ignore Grief is a continuation in Xiu Xiu's long line of experiments with each of their albums. We had Oh No, which included a feature in every single track. We had Girl with Basket of Fruit, which was their first foray into proper industrial music, and it featured some terrifying material. We had Forget, which is still probably their most accessible album, with it being a quite catchy synth-pop album, but of course it still features those classic Xiu Xiu undertones. It's disturbing and depressing. We've had them cover the entire Twin Peaks soundtrack. We've had an avant folk album. We've had an avant jazz album. Xiu Xiu are always experimenting, and they show no signs of stopping here. Ignore Grief does seem like a natural evolution from Girl with a Basket of Fruit though. Ignore Grief is that album's muscular toned bigger brother with claws and fangs. This record does not hold back, because gone are any kind of conventional song structures, and instead they are replaced by incredibly unsettling clashes, bangs, synths, drones, hopeless and dissonant vocals. It's unpredictable, but that's what makes it brilliant. But of course, there's also a gimmick at play here. The album is split between the two main members, Jamie and Angela, and each get 5 songs to perform on vocally. Both of their styles are quite different and offer a contrast between tracks that really adds to the atmosphere. Jamie's vocals are as usual hopeless and despairing, and given the atmosphere and tone this album builds and sets, it works perfectly. But Angela's vocals feel a lot more sinister due to her performance on a lot of tracks she's on being deadpan, as if she's staring me straight in the eyes from a dark corner, speaking these disturbing nonsense words at me. There are times where she shows more emotion, but that only feels more demented. While Jamie feels like a trapped soul from hell attempting to drag you down, Angela feels like a demon trying to lure you through the front gates. Very frightening. 9 out of 10. Indigo Diaz returns with a sophomore release that somehow tops his debut. I'm honestly astonished at how he did it, because I already absolutely adored his debut. Once again, it was featured in my top 21 albums video, near the top, I might add. He takes everything that made his debut an absolute delight to listen to, and just turns everything up to 11. It's very obvious that he's taken what he's learned from his debut and only expanded upon it. He's taken that indie rock and space rock sound and expanded it into a much more jazz-inspired Midwestern emo sound, and it sounds just so gorgeous. You have songs like Form a Living Thing and Methanol Fire where he completely lets his vocals loose. Nothing like this was heard on his debut, and it's amazing to hear the full power of his voice. The former track also showing an incredibly heavy jazz influence, probably the jazziest song on the album. He also shows off his more arty and post-rocky side with tracks like Bring Down the Sky, Saturnine Saturn Dreams, and the big 10-minute closing title track. We go from the longest song at his debut being a little over 7 minutes to having 3 tracks breach that mark. It's clear that Diaz wanted a much grander atmosphere for this record, and he most definitely achieved it. For the full 42 minutes this album goes on for, I was completely enamored and a part of the world it built. I was transported to a distant galaxy full of emotion, passion, and talent. It's 10 out of 10. Also, a quick side note, the review I wrote for this is very unorthodox and also not related to anything I just said, but I worked very hard on it and I'm proud of it, so if you want to read it, it'll be in the description with all the other reviews as usual, so go read it, thank you, bye bye. BCNR suffered what was probably a band's worst fear, or at least one of them. They lost their frontman Isaac Wood as he departed the band just before the release of their sophomore album, Ants From Up There, which in itself is very much an album about his insecurities and the position he found himself in as the lead of a pretty popular band. But I'm getting off topic. Live at Bush Hall isn't meant to be an album dedicated to Isaac, or about him at all really. This is a collection of live songs that the band wrote practically on the fly as they couldn't perform any material that included Isaac, for obvious reasons. This led to a very interesting situation that I haven't really seen before. Over the course of just under a year, we watched the band practically write a new album of material that was only ever played live. Each show they would tweak and change things, and we as the fans saw as they evolved. This was an incredibly interesting and exciting experience to be a part of, even if I never had the ability to go to a show. I still got to watch these songs evolve over the year. It seems the band really enjoyed it too, and found a lot of comfort in doing it. You can tell that they're having a lot of fun playing all of these songs, and that also shows in their quality. Of course these songs are amazing. This band can literally do no wrong. Bush Hall is quite a different style to what the band have done before. The band have gone from making post-rock, experimental post-punk, krautrock stuff, to chamber pop, baroque pop, art rock, and still post-rock. Bush Hall sounds quite inspired by artists like Joanna Newsom, especially the songs written and performed by May. Another very noticeable change to this album is that the band now has multiple vocalists, mainly Tyler, Lewis, and May. All 3 of them do amazing jobs on their respective songs, and make me really excited to hear what's next for the band. The band have said that none of this material will probably see the light of a studio, but I think that's okay. This is meant to be a snapshot into the past hectic year that the band have had. We've all been part of the ride. New songs are already being debuted at concerts, so LP3 is already being worked on. It is an amazing time to be a BCNR fan, but it's also always an amazing time to be a BCNR fan. 10 out of 10. Parannoul released his 3rd album earlier this year, and if you remember, which you should, I gave it a 10. I absolutely adored it, as well as many other people. Parannoul is amazing at making shoegazy emo landscapes that fill me with so many emotions, some of them actually happy this time around. I thought this would be all we see of him this year, but it turns out only a couple months later we would receive a live album. I was intrigued when I saw it released, but I wasn't immediately going to listen to it. That wasn't until I actually looked at the track list. For the most part, it's what you'd expect from a live show, especially one of his first. I found out after writing this that this is actually his first live show. It's all the hits and some new songs, as when this was recorded, After the Magic hadn't actually been released yet. But the closing track is what made me have to listen to this immediately. Into the Endless Night. The encore is 46 minutes long. That's fucking insane, and I think everyone else agreed. From front to back, this album is incredible. It's all of Parannoul's best material, and all of it performed live, it all just sounds even better. I think I prefer the live versions of every song on here, as I can feel the burning passion of each of them. And then we get to the closing track, Into the Endless Night, and oh my god, it's absolutely everything I could have asked for, and so much more. It's no secret that Parannoul is quite a bit of a Fishman's fan, so I don't think it's unfair to assume that this is a tribute of sorts to the band and their final show. But that's one thing. Managing to actually pull it off and create something so masterful and eclectic that can be considered on par with Fishman's long season is a whole other beast. If you didn't think that Parannoul was talented or anything to really look out for, this should be proof and evidence enough. Parannoul's an artist who will become huge, mark my words, bigger than they already are. This is only the beginning. 10 out of 10. That voice crack was deliberate. it wasn't, but we're going to pretend it was. And with that, we move on to the singles of the month. Some great albums released last month, but of course we can't forget about the many great singles we got too. Even if I didn't put that many here because I didn't listen to that many, but that's besides the point. There were plenty others, I'm sure I just didn't listen to them, but that doesn't matter. Panchiko come back with a new single, an actual new single, and a new album announcement. Honestly, I'm so incredibly excited as this band have such potential to be something great. The song is quite the departure from Panchiko's established sound, as it's an indie-tronica neo-psychedelic track with glitchy influences, but I think it was done because Owen, the lead singer of the band, stated that he prefers the rotted versions of death metal over the restored versions, and I believe he wanted to try to recreate that sound and feeling, and I feel that the band did a good job. This is a really good song and leaves me very excited. Panchiko actually dropped 2 singles this month. Surprise! Until I Know is actually taken from their 1997 to 2000 Demos album, so this song has been around for quite a bit, but only now has been re-recorded and reworked into a new song for their debut album. This track sounds much more like classic Panchiko with much less deliberate psychedelic and electronic effects. This song feels like it was taken straight from the post-Britpop era of UK music, sounds like bands like Cranberries, Snow Patrol and early Coldplay. I really hope that the sound as a whole makes a comeback as I adore it. It makes me feel really warm and comfortable, probably because I grew up on it. Both of these singles leave me really excited for the upcoming album. This band are going to become amazing. Swans finally return after 3 years of next to nothing with a new single for their upcoming album entitled The Beggar. As soon as the song was teased, I got immediately excited. It's no secret that I absolutely adore Swans' music and consider them to be one of the best bands out there currently. Their newest single, Paradise Is Mine, shows no signs of my opinion changing, with their previous album Leaving Meaning being one of their weaker ones. It's incredibly exciting hearing a new 9-minute Swans song, as if it came straight from their no-wave era. This track combines their sound from the 80s with their more modern trilogy sound, and it works perfectly. This is definitely one of their droniest songs in recent memory, and does leave me intrigued to hear what the rest of this 3-hour album has to offer. There's a 44-minute song on this next album. It's going to be insane. And with that, we close the video. This is a longer one, I know. I don't want to say I'm sorry because it was deliberate. I deliberately wrote more and wanted to include more albums because I felt like it was only fair. So hopefully you enjoyed the longer amount of content, I guess. I don't know, maybe you fucking hated it. But either way, I hope you found at least something that interested you, because that's the main point of this. If you did, you know, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and just in general, go check out the reviews I've linked in the description. I've this time around reviewed every single album on this list. Singles I haven't because I didn't feel obliged to, I guess. But all the albums I have reviewed. You can donate to my Ko-fi as well. That'll be linked below. And follow me on Twitter. All the random standard stuff that a YouTuber will say in their outro. But with that, I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, depending when you're watching this, and I hope you found something interesting to listen to, and hopefully this video does not release at the end of April, because that would be stupid.